In the heart of a quiet village in Indonesia, nestled between wide rice paddies and silent bamboo groves, life moves slowly, governed by tradition, nature, and unspoken rules. The villagers rise with the sun, work under its gaze, and retreat home as the skies shift orange at dusk. But there is one time of day that carries a weight unlike any other: Maghrib, when the call to prayer echoes softly across the fields, and the sky hangs in a delicate balance between gold and dark. Every household closes their windows. Mothers rush their children indoors. Lamps are lit, doors are locked, because the elders have always whispered, "Never be outside during Maghrib." It is when our world and theirs almost touch. No one dares question this rule. It's just how things are, how they have always been. But rules are tested when curiosity sparks or when innocence forgets. On one stormy evening, the winds screamed louder than usual, and the rain drowned the familiar sounds of the village. Thunder cracked the sky, the power went out, and in the dark, soaked earth near an unfinished stairway made of packed dirt, a voice was heard. A voice not from any house nor from any villager. A cry, raw and chilling, echoing through the storm. "Help!" It was not just heard by one person, it was heard by three, and none of them would ever forget it. The clock hadn't struck Maghrib yet, but the sky already looked bruised. Heavy clouds rolled in fast from the west, swallowing the soft orange light of the afternoon sun. My brother was still at the neighbor's house, only a few meters down the muddy path from ours. The houses in our village stood apart, separated by patches of grass, bamboo fences, and small canals for irrigation. Then the rain came, not the usual drizzle that softened the earth, but a downpour that roared as if the sky itself had split open. Thick sheets of rain hammered the roofs made of tin and tile, creating a deafening metallic rhythm. The wind followed closely behind, violent, cold, and relentless. Banana trees bent under its force, their leaves flapping like torn fabric. The chickens had already hidden under the coop, and the stray cat that always lingered near the kitchen had vanished without a trace. Lightning flashed, blinding for a second. Then thunder, deep, growling, like something waking up in the sky. Inside our home, the lights flickered once, then went out completely. Darkness fell faster than it should have. The warm yellow glow from the oil lamp in the corner suddenly felt too small, too weak. Outside, the world was swallowed by gray rain and black shadows. My brother was still out there, and something about the air felt wrong. It wasn't just the storm, it was the silence in between, a tension, a pressure in the air, like the world was holding its breath. No frogs croaked, no children laughed, only the rain and the wind, and the distant call to prayer beginning to echo. The call to Maghrib prayer had just begun to echo, soft, melodic, and distant. It blended with the sound of rain, almost swallowed by the storm. And then, like someone had flipped a single switch across the entire village, the lights went out. Not just in our house, but everywhere. Porches dimmed, lanterns flickered, the hum of electricity vanished into nothingness. What remained was the relentless drum of rain striking the tin roofs, the windows, the dirt paths. It was the only sound that dared to stay. The call to Maghrib prayer had just begun to echo, soft, melodic, and distant. It blended with the sound of rain, almost swallowed by the storm. And then, like someone had flipped a single switch across the entire village, the lights went out. Not just in our house, but everywhere. Porches dimmed, lanterns flickered, the hum of electricity vanished into nothingness. What remained was the relentless drum of rain striking the tin roofs, the windows, the dirt paths. It was the only sound that dared to stay. Inside the neighbor's house, a hush fell. The adults lit a small kerosene lamp, its flame weak and flickering in the cold wind that slipped through the cracks in the wooden walls. Shadows danced on the walls like figures from another world. My brother stood near the doorway, his right hand holding his worn sandals, the other slightly pushing aside the curtain that served as a door. He peered out, trying to see through the curtain of rain. Only darkness greeted him. The short walk home now looked like a stretch of black water and trees swaying unnaturally. There were no visible lights, no familiar voices calling from other homes. Just the wind howling through the banana trees, like whispers of something unseen. He didn't move. He stood quietly by the door, sandals in hand while the rain poured harder outside. His eyes stared into the wet, darkened yard, where everything looked unfamiliar under the heavy rain. Something in the air made him pause. Maybe it was the wind, maybe just a feeling. But his steps stopped before they even began. Inside, the small house was silent, except for the crackling of a weak oil lamp. The neighbor's young daughter gently held her mother's hand. She didn't speak, but her gaze also drifted to the doorway. It wasn't just the weather. It wasn't only the sudden darkness. It was the strange quiet that followed, like everything had gone still for a reason. Like the world outside had changed, just a little, when the power disappeared. To reach home, my brother had to pass a familiar slope, one that we used every day. But that evening, it didn't feel familiar at all. The path was steep, carved by many feet over time into rough, uneven steps made of earth. There was no concrete, no rails, only wet soil and scattered stones, now turned slick by the heavy rain. The wind had knocked down a few leaves and twigs, and puddles had gathered in the footprints left behind. Water flowed gently along the edges, carving tiny paths of its own. Each step down looked darker than the last. He took a slow step forward, his foot pressed into the mud with a soft squelch. He looked down, squinting through the dim light. There was no lamp, only the brief, silvery flashes of lightning far off in the clouds. He held his breath, listened. Only the rain, only the distant wind through the trees. But something didn't feel right. At the edge of the first step, he stopped. His eyes scanned the slope. There was no one there, but something about the way the shadows moved, how they seemed to shift even when he didn't, made his skin crawl. It was as if the path ahead wasn't empty, as if something was quietly watching, waiting just beyond the edge of what he could see. Then it came, a voice, soft, but too close, too clear, and not quite right. "Help up!" That one word floated through the heavy rain, just above the sound of falling water. It didn't rise like a shout. It slid through the air like something carried by the wind, slow, almost careful. It didn't echo. It crawled. Through the trees, through the rain, and straight into him. The voice came from the path, from the very step his foot was about to touch. My brother froze, sandals in hand, legs rooted to the ground. His eyes widened. He didn't see anyone, but the sound had felt close, as if whispered right into the space around him. And it wasn't the kind of sound you mistake for something else. It wasn't the rain, it wasn't the wind. It was a cry for help. But no one should have been out there. Not in the rain, not in the dark, not on that muddy path at Maghrib. Yet something had spoken, and it had chosen that moment, that word. Help! His breath caught in his throat. For a few seconds he couldn't move, frozen by the weight of what he just heard. His fingers gripped the edge of the door frame. Then with all the strength fear could give, he turned. His voice cracked, sharp through the rain. Dad! The word echoed louder than the scream before it. He bolted across the yard, his sandals nearly slipping from his grasp. The ground was soft and wild beneath his feet. His steps were uneven, rushed, mud flying up with each stride. Halfway to the house, he slipped. His knee hit the earth. His hand sank into the puddle. But he didn't stop. He got up, soaked and shivering, and kept running until he reached the front steps. Our father appeared seconds later, flashlight in hand. Its beam cut through the rain like a sword, bright but unable to reach far. They both stood there side by side, eyes fixed on the path behind the house. Nothing moved, no sound followed, only the same rain, soft and endless. The voice never came again. The next morning, the village seemed to return to its quiet rhythm. The sun rose gently, casting golden light across the wet rice fields. The storm was gone. The sky was blue again, and the soft hum of insects filled the air. Birds hopped from tree to tree, singing as if nothing had happened. But not everything felt the same. There was something heavy in the air, like a question waiting to be asked. Near the edge of the rice field, two familiar figures stood facing each other. Sir Ahmad with his old straw hat and calm voice, and Sir Udin, who usually laughed with ease, now spoke in hushed tones. Their eyes weren't on their crops. They weren't holding farming tools. They kept glancing toward the muddy slope near our house. My father walked over to greet them. They exchanged nods, then a long silence followed. Then finally Sir Udin said quietly, almost afraid of the words himself, "Did you hear it too?" Sir Ahmad gave a slow nod. No one smiled. No one joked. They weren't talking about last night's storm. They were talking about the voice, the same voice that had whispered through the rain, the one that called for help when no one was supposed to be there. Sir Udin's brow furrowed as he spoke, eyes distant, like he was replaying the moment in his mind. He said he had been sitting with his cup of tea when he heard it, soft at first, then clearer, a voice breaking through the rhythm of the rain. Help! He thought someone might have slipped near the back alley behind his house, so he rushed to the back door, opened it wide, and looked into the pouring darkness. Nothing. No one. Just puddles and the steady sound of rain dripping from his roof. But the voice had sounded close. Too close. Sidr Ahmad, standing silently beside him, finally spoke up. His tone was flat, but his eyes told a different story. He said the sound came from near his kitchen, the wall that faced the slope leading down to our house. It was right outside, he said, like someone standing there calling. His wife had heard it too. They had turned on a small lantern, thinking maybe someone needed help. But no shadow passed their window. No footprints were found outside. 3 people, 3 separate places, one identical voice. All of them heard it, and all of them agreed. Whoever called out for help wasn't seen and might not have been meant to be seen. Weeks passed. The villagers eventually poured cement over the muddy slope. It was now a clean, sturdy path with carved steps and small stones pressed into the sides for grip. A safe way home, they said. But something else had changed. No one walked there during Maghrib anymore. The silence around that path during twilight was not just quiet. It was cautious. It was deliberate. Children, even those too young to remember that rainy night, were told by their parents, "Stay inside at dusk. Don't answer strange voices, especially if it sounds like someone asking for help." Some dismissed it as village talk, old superstition, but those who heard the scream, "My brother, my father, Pak Udin, Pak Ahmad," they never forgot the weight of that moment, the cold, the way the voice didn't echo, but crawled across the rain, the feeling that something unseen had brushed past them in the dark. And so that slope, cemented and clean, still holds an uneasiness. Because in this village, when the sky turns orange and the call to prayer begins to fade into the wind, if you ever hear a voice whispering through the rain, a voice saying, "Help," you don't answer, you don't look back, you just walk away. Because it may not be a person, and whatever it is, it might still be waiting. My brother grew up. Time passed. He left the village, went to school, made friends, built a new life. But that one night, the storm, the silence, the voice, it never left him. Sometimes on quiet evenings, he says it all comes back. Not the chill of the rain, not the sting of the mud on his knees, but the voice, that strange, almost breathless whisper. It didn't sound like someone begging. It didn't sound scared. It was calm, deliberate, like it didn't want help. It only wanted to be heard. And it was. That moment, between light and dark, between a step forward or standing still, stays with him. And so now, wherever he is, in the city, in a small room, or visiting the village again, he always does the same thing when Maghrib arrives. He closes the windows. He dims the lights. He sits quietly for a few seconds, and he listens, not out of fear, but out of memory. Just in case. That voice returns. Just in case. Something still waits in the rain, whispering through the wind. "Help!"